r/ask Reddit. What did your school waste money on that nobody liked? A 3D printer that the teachers won't learn how to use, so now nobody is allowed to use it. My school got 4 of those and the teacher responsible for them actually encouraged us to take the SolidWorks course to learn about 3D design. It was actually a lot of fun and I still have some of the objects I created. I thought my school was like royalty since we have 2 but 4. And yet, SolidWorks is actually really fun to do, especially when you get it right. Some of my classmates won a bunch of money for our school. Our school was one of the lowest funded schools in the district. The district took the money and spent it on another school. Hey, reminds me when I was a sophomore. My school was next in line to get renovations and upgrades. Only half classes even had air conditioning. Instead, the district built a new school that took half of my graduating class. They also took teachers, so my classes were still overcrowded. Was on boys varsity soccer team in high school. New head coach. Wanted to emphasize more analytical approach. And as such, had booster club buy a $10,000 goalpost camera. None of the team liked the idea anyway, especially since the girls soccer team used their money for new jerseys and nicer balls, and they still made it farther in their playoffs than we did almost every year. As it turns out, the coach couldn't figure out how to put the camera together, and we never used it. Biggest waste of $10,000 I've ever seen. My high school wasted a ton of money buying 2 golf carts. Their reasoning was it allowed staff to get to any dangerous scenes faster. Except we never had any accidents and they were mostly used for joyrides by the hall monitors. This seems like a shitty idea regardless. Driving golf carts indoors in a school sounds dangerous. I imagine that it was a school with multiple buildings and outdoor space, but it's funny to imagine them inside tiny hallways. Name tags. Shortly after Columbine and all those other shootings peaked in frequency, it was supposed to keep outsiders from getting in the school unnoticed and shooting everyone, but at the time people doing the shootings were always students, so we joked they were bulletproof. Why not just school IDs? Why name tags? My school had IDs, but we had to wear them on a lanyard so that everyone could see them. Maybe this is what they meant by name tag. My son's current school sent out an email to parents announcing that they'd like to add voice projection to every class. He's in 1st grade and there are 20 kids in his class. Totally unnecessary. They had a demo session and it sounded horrible. My high school got these midway through my junior year, and they sucked. The range wasn't great, and the receiver in one classroom would pick up the microphone in another, and the battery life was awful, so the teachers rarely used it. The best thing that they were used for was the one time that my teacher noticed a kid in the room across the hall was asleep in class. They were watching a video and the other teacher had stepped out of the room for a moment and walked over to the door so that the other room's receiver would pick up his mic, and said wake up, and then closed his door. 2012 Chromeox that die in like 30 minutes. It's a tragedy when schools try to get tech for their students and basically buy junk because they have no idea what they're doing. And the next time someone brings up doing it right, they just point to it failing last time. We've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas. Trash cans with the school logo on them and banners. They tried hyping us up about new trash cans on the morning show. At my school they took away some of the tables in the cafeteria until we kept it cleaner. We just sat on the floor instead. My elementary school didn't even have tables, we just sat on the floor in the halls. My college bought a small restaurant out for $1 million to build $1 million brick gate that doesn't close. The large schoolyard at my school had a set of planters in the center. They were basically 4 triangles made of brick that pointed in at each other and created an X-shaped walkways between. The outside sides had a bench each attached. People would sit and chat to each other on the benches, teachers and students alike. There was very little litter or vandalism. The plants were kinda pretty insofar as any secondary schooler would care to notice. One year a duck made her nest in one of the planters, and apart from a few "oh hey a duck nest" comments, it was left alone. Then for some reason the school decided to rip the planters out. Took them 2/3 of the school year to do it and blocked off the X walkways so everyone had to crush by on the outside lanes between classes. Everyone was super curious as to what the planters would be replaced by. Turns out, nothing. They simply bricked over the holes left by the planters and left it as a huge empty space. We didn't even get new benches, so no one had anywhere to sit during break. People started to miss the plants since the lack of color left the whole area kinda bland. We also kept to the old X walkways and stepping over the former planters felt weird. They decided all of the glue sticks had to be purple. I guess purple glue does taste as good as purple crayons. I distinctly remember the purple glue sticks smelling better. iPads for the kindergarten. They were intended to have educational apps on them that kids could play on at indoor recess. Believe it or not, most kindergartners would rather play on the swings or play with dolls than learn to write their name on an app. No one used them. No one liked them, and they all broke within 2 months. HRRMM. My indoor recess at that age was the whole group using these big puzzle piece foam blocks to build castles and then crawl all over them. We would not have cared about the iPad either. Laminated ID cards that everyone had to wear around their necks on some dorky ass lanyard. No one ducking did it, so they made it punishable by detention. After that, half the students still didn't do it, and the detention hall became so overwhelmed that they began to make backlogs. After a few weeks, not wearing a lanyard gave you a detention 2 months from then. Eventually, detention became so backlogged that students started doing more severe transgressions because they would have graduated before they could actually be forced to go to detention. After about a month, no one had to wear their ID cards at all anymore. They said it was for security purposes, so no one could sneak into the school. The thing is, you could put literally anything in the lanyard, and no one would check if it was your actual student ID card. I had a blank index card in mine and no one ever said anything to me. If someone actually wanted to sneak into the school, all they would need is a lanyard and no one would ever check if it's actually authentic or not. When I was still a student, my school spent almost $200K to paint the roads outside our school. You read that right. Almost $200,000 of our precious tuition dollars to paint the roads outside blue and yellow. To pour salt on this painful wound. The paint job didn't even make it through winter. So just to reiterate, $200,000 for 3 months of painted road. I think I'm still angry about it. That's gotta be the dumbest one I've read in here. A lot of them are dumb and that money was spent on technology or other things that wouldn't be used. But those at least keep some value after being bought. This is just throwing money away. My high school purchased a vending machine that only contained Swerve. What is Swerve, you ask? Carbonated milk. Why on God's green earth would someone make that? Oh yes, I'm prepared for this answer. My school's mascot was a knight, and it was rumored that the school had the choice of installing a pool at the high school, or to commission a large, think like 25 feet long, metal sculpture of a knight on a horse, and to hang it from the ceiling in the back hallway. They opted for the horse. I was waiting for Ken Hour to pop up on here. Seeing that stupid pile of scrap shoved into the rafters like an afterthought is something I won't miss. That place was ducked and I'm just happy I never have to go back. Especially if Smith is still the VP. Duck that guy. Son's elementary school PTO had an excess of funds. They decided to spend it on a buddy bench. A buddy bench is a bench that you can sit on if you want buddy. I theory it sounds like a decent idea, except that it was placed in the hallway near the office and none of the kids wanted to be identified as someone who didn't have a friend. Nobody ever sits on it. An anatomically ambitious statue of our animal mascot. Look up William and Mary Griffin statue if you're really curious. Whenever I was in high school, my senior year, they decided to make technology improvements. So, they swapped a lot of old textbooks for iPads. They placed unnecessary TVs in the hallways. Waste of money. I don't understand the whole TV fixation thing. My science classroom in high school had a massive flat screen television which we rarely used for anything. Halfway through the year they took it out and put in an even bigger flat screen television that we never used for anything. They cut out welding, machine shop, wood shop, and graphic design to buy a $1M scoreboard for football. A scoreboard? Seriously? And I thought my school making an entire sports hall only for football teams was stupid. The school had a jewel raffle in which they had a raffle in which the person would win a bunch of money via gift cards. And to enter they had to give up their vape pens. It worked as well as you'd expect it to. And if you won and didn't duel, I'm guessing you had to go out and buy one so you had something to turn in. No, you had to turn in your jewel, and then you'd get a ticket. Which was funny, cause some kids started selling broken jewels to people who didn't want to turn theirs in or just straight up didn't have a jewel, but still wanted to enter. A clock tower with no clock. So a tower? $30,000 from 2 years of fundraising on an LED billboard about 10 feet off of a major road. It was so bright that it caused several accidents at night and had to be shut down about 8 months later because it was deemed a safety hazard. I hung out with several guys on the programming team and they figured out how to upload memes onto it. They couldn't figure out who did it, so no one got in trouble. Our new Slick Willy superintendent insisted on buying an educational project for $500,000 that consisted of software that nobody wanted or could use. It was from his girlfriend. Slick Willy went to jail. Cameras installed in nearly every inch of the school. Not for student safety but because the school board didn't trust the kids. My school was miles behind other high schools. Old textbooks and sometimes not enough textbooks. Computers were junk. No in-school programs. They spent every ounce of money on cameras and putting the rest in the school board's pockets. Principal's salary. Our old superintendent had a salary of over $200,000. Plus in the year where a bunch of teachers had to be laid off because of a budget shortage, he got paid another $200,000 for unused vacation days. It should also be mentioned that it's been an open secret of him being a bit of a creep for decades. He's always had a very nice car with his initials as a vanity plate, and he resigned last year after sexual harassment allegations. Another thing I should mention is that this is all coming from a pretty poor district. My school just spent tens of millions of dollars on a remodel that includes a new commons and front office area, which were not needed, but no new classrooms, which were desperately needed. The old commons was warm, inviting, bright and beautiful. It wasn't old. The new commons is dark, cold, sterile and uninviting. The exterior was changed too. The entire front of the school used to be attractive. Now it looks like a prison. I think maybe the architect presented the design as a joke, but our principal liked it, so the architect just rolled with it. My city had a town-wide vote to build a new school just because the old one was, well, old. After the first vote failed, they came back 2 months later to do a second vote because they thought they needed it so bad. After that the town just gave in. So now we are gonna have a new high school for no reason other than the fact that the old one was not good enough. If it's not broke, don't fix it. One of the schools in our district paid an astronomical fee to an artist to create an artwork for the hall of the school. Paid for the dude's room and board for like a year and he produced a large polished piece of wood. No, literally that's it. It was supposed to be shaped like a heart but it looks more like a butt and is now known as the Bart. My high school spent a bunch of money on this system to play popular songs for the last minute of passing time between classes so we'd hear popular music and as a convenient way to know to get to your next class. Then they started playing Friday by Rebecca Black every Friday once. Then it was the only song on Fridays. Then it was the only song every day, 5 times a day. Thank God that was my senior year. No idea if they still do it. Whoa. You made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.